Homework 2, question 18, one of the first of the challenging questions. G of c is equal to 2 over c minus 5 root of c plus 7c. Find the first and second derivatives of this function. One of the first things I'll do when working on a derivative, one of my very first steps always, will be to try to rewrite the expression in the form of ax to the power of n. So we can use our power rule. So something like 2 over c, I'm going to rewrite that as 2c to the power of negative 1. Now you can see it's in that power rule format where I should be able to use that rule. And something like the root of c, I'm going to use a fraction exponent instead. So I have minus 5 times c. This is the second root, so I'm going to give it a half exponent, plus 7c. From here, I'm going to use my power rule of derivatives. So the power rule implies that when I have a function in the form of ax to the power of n, the derivative of that function becomes, I pull back that n exponent, I have a n x to the power of n minus 1. The a just comes along for a ride. That coefficient, it's really that n x to the power of n minus 1 that I'm going to focus on here. So now for our first derivative, g prime of c, for our first term, 2c to the power of negative 1. 2 is the coefficient. It's just going to go along for the ride. And then I pull back that exponent, negative 1. Negative 1, c to the power of negative 1 minus 1 gives me negative 2. For our second term here, I have minus 5 as my coefficient, and then I pull back that exponent, and I have half c to the power of half minus 1 is negative half. And then for our last term here, I have plus 7 times the derivative of c is simply 1. Cleaning this up, I get negative 2 times negative 1, giving me negative 2, c to the power of negative 2. Minus 5 times half gives me negative 5 halves, c to the power of negative half, plus 7. So there is my first derivative, g prime of c. Now for my second derivative, I'm going to do the derivative of the first derivative. So looking at our first term, negative 2c to the power of negative 2. Negative 2 is my coefficient. It's just more of the power rule. And then I pull back that exponent times negative 2c to the power of negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. Looking at my next term, I have the coefficient, negative 5 halves. Now I do the derivative of c to the power of negative half. I pull back that exponent, negative half, c to the power of negative half minus 1. So negative half minus 1, I like to write that as minus 2 over 2, is going to give me minus 3 over 2. So my exponent is going to be negative 3 over 2. And then finally, I have the derivative of our constant 7. Based on the constant rule, I know the derivative of this is 0. Don't even have to write it down, but I did there. Now cleaning this up, I'm going to multiply negative 2 times negative 2, giving me positive 4. C to the power of negative 3. Here I have my two fractions being multiplied, so I'm going to multiply the numerators first. So I have negative 5 and negative 1, giving me positive, should add that over here, 5, and then I multiply the denominators. 2 times 2 is 4, so I have 5 fourths, c to the power of negative 3 halves. And this is my second derivative.